make sure again that you're all in the right place for those of you that have just joined. It's going to be about LinkedIn. It's going to be about social selling. So the terminology that's used a lot on LinkedIn, but it's how, as a consultant, speaker, trainer, coach, you can start utilizing the processes that we do to start generating business on this platform within a 30-day period. So this is all about speed. It's all about hard work. It's all about doing the hard yards to be able to get results. However, there are some things that I need to make sure that you've got in place to be able to make sure that you achieve what we're saying you can. Now, I have 3 specific aims for today. Number 1 is to give you as much as I can in the hour that I've got. We may run slightly over the hour. If we do, I will let you know, but it should just run just shy of 60 minutes. At the end of the session, I'm going to be introducing you to our Social Selling Academy. Now, that is a program that we've got over 290 people into now, and we're about to celebrate our 300th member, which is amazing. I'll be talking to you a little bit about that at the end, but I need you to realize, and this goes across everywhere that I appear online and also offline right now, I don't hold back when it comes to answering questions. So if you have any question whatsoever, please ask it throughout this session. I put these sessions on to be able to give you access to me, right? So please don't hold back anything about your business, anything about your marketing, anything about your sales. I get inundated with direct messages, which are really difficult to respond to on a one-to-one basis, especially with everything that we're doing in the academy. So use this session to answer any or ask any question that you've possibly got. Now, what would be really, really good? I'm assuming we've got, bearing in mind the marketing of this event has been very heavy towards the industry of consulting, speaking, training, and coaching. Would you mind letting me know what it is that you specifically do in the chat, just to make sure that we've got like a strong demographic of people, so the examples that I give are going to be relevant. If you are, however, not a consultant or falling into this industry, please don't worry. Please still share it in the chat box, because I will include you if I know. So we've got a few one-to-one coaches in here. We've got business growth. We've got a few photographers in, business development. We've got life coaching. Good to see you, Simon. Cynthia, amazing. Good to see you. Alex is a travel academy. That sounds very interesting. Something that I'd love to find out more about. Susan, you're an accountant. Dr. Grace, you're a relationship coach. Amazing. Okay, keep those answers flooding in for me, okay? Now, to add some context to this, the information that I've compiled for you isn't rocket science. It's very, very simple, and it's been collected after about 850 conversations that I've had with consultants and service-based businesses over the last year and a half, coming up to 2 years. What is really common when you speak to people in your space is that there are some common reasons as to why people are failing. Now, it doesn't take long to see these reasons when you have an outside person's perspective on what you're doing. However, I appreciate that sometimes it's quite difficult to be able to see what you need to change when you're trapped in the day-to-day. And that's why I wanted to do this session, is to kind of shine a light on the reasons why you might be struggling. And with this section specifically, what I want you to sit back and reflect upon is, I'm going to give you 5 key reasons that I see time and time again as to why people struggle in terms of lead generation online. Now, some of these might apply, all of them might apply to you. However, what I want you to think about, and also use the chat box for me, is if there is a specific number that really relates to you, could you just type it in the chat box for me so I know where to spend the most amount of the time in the session? Now, these 5 reasons are so common. You may have heard them before, you may not have. And the number 1 reason as to why people struggle when it comes to social media, lead generation, converting, generating conversations online is because the message that you're putting out there isn't currently relevant in today's market. And what that causes is an inability to build credibility online. So there is no surprise when I look at my brand and the journey that I've been on. The more credible I've become, the more opportunity has come my way. And when I look at a lot of people's profiles, one of the things that's really clear is that they don't really know what to say. They know they're good at what they do, but they don't know what to say to be able to showcase people online how good they really are. So it's a big one that's out there. Number 2 is that you want to try and build a following. You hear lots of people giving advice out there on social media, how to build an audience. But the problem is that 99% of people aren't worth following in the first place, especially when you just look at their social media profiles alone. Now, obviously, I'm going to be talking to you a lot about LinkedIn today, but this applies everywhere online. If your audience isn't growing right now at a rate of around about 700 people a month or more, you need to change something to speed it up, because the opportunity is there when you start doing the right things. And it is all about standing out on the newsfeed. The majority just blend in. And the statistic with this is just looking at your own user behavior. When you pick up this thing, right, and you start scrolling, typically you will scroll past 20 pieces of content per one that you stop on. My job is to teach you how do you become the one, because the other 19, quite frankly, are just wasting their time. Now, that is a statistic that is online. You can go and search it. It is there, and it is a fact when you look at your own behavior. So that's number two, a hard one to admit, but actually a really important one to be aware of. Number three is that, quite simply, you know you're great at what you do. You might be able to communicate it really well, but you just don't have a big enough audience, right? That's just fact. You look at your numbers and you go, right, if I could just have 10,000 people in my following and make 100 of them really, really interested in what I'm talking about, those 100 people would be enough to be able to enable me to hit target. The problem is you don't have the 10,000 people because you don't have traffic. Number four is my favorite. It is the one where we spend a lot of time on with the work that we do, but it's the fact that you're using social media. You might be posting content. You might be leaving comments. You might be building your network. You might be using the platform. But the problem is you're doing all of your work on the platform and don't have a process that works behind the scenes to move people from a random connection to your best customer. The process that you can build in that is predictable and needs to be sustainable for you to consistently generate business. We're going to deep dive into that today in a lot of detail, because that is the bit where I absolutely love to geek out on. And then number five, again, is a hard one to admit, but this applies to pretty much every person that I speak to. Their social media activity, they are doing the work, but the work is kind of in hope that someone eventually sends them a message and says, hi, I want to work with you. The term inbound leads is what they are waiting for. Now, the problem is, if you sit there waiting for business and don't do anything to go after it, unfortunately, you're going to be in this feast and famine approach permanently, and you can't grow a business like that. So with all of that in mind, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or maybe all of them, maybe a combination, which one in the chat box for me most relates to you? Okay, so we have a lot of threes coming through. So it's all about audience building. I was waiting for the fours to come. They're now piling through, which is really good. And that's definitely an important one. I haven't had any five. We've had a couple of fives now coming through. So 5 is one that definitely stands out, right? It's like you're doing all the work and you're waiting for it to come. A few of you are saying all of you. Okay, great. So the good news is that today, thank you for your engagement, by the way. I really appreciate it. It helps me a lot. So the amazing thing about today's session is there's no shock, I'm sure. I'm covering all of those 5 points. Okay, so we're going to take you through step by step those 5 points. And what I've got here is the framework that we teach in our academy. I'm going to be taking you behind the curtains a bit and just sharing what we're seeing at the moment to be able to start generating the results that we're saying people are getting right now. I'm going to share with you how to do it. And I've only got an hour with you. I've now got only 50 minutes left. Okay, so with this, I can't share it all. I'm going to be sharing those 3 specific sections, but with elements of content and control in there as well. The closing section is a different presentation that I give. So if sales is something that you're struggling with, then make sure that you stay on our email list, because we will be talking about that in a couple of months' time. But today we're going to take you through clarity, we're going to take you through connection, and then into conversion. And there's 2 things that I want you to think about. I want you to write them down if you're taking notes right now. The 2 most important things throughout the whole of this process. Number 1 is the word touch points. Now I'm going to be talking to you about touch points all the way through this session. And then number 2 is how the algorithm works. And that is under the fact of dwell time. You will see underneath those boxes, we've got sub 1 minute, sub 15 minutes, between 2 to 3 hours and over 30 minutes or under 30 minutes. That is the amount of dwell time you need to be able to generate a mindset shift to get someone to want to buy from you. 2 things to really write down straight away. Touch points and dwell time. I'll explain why as we go through. Now, I don't spend very much time talking about me because I know you don't really care about that whatsoever. But just to make sure that you realize that who I am and what I'm doing, the stats are there for you. I'm not going to read them up. There's so much information about me online. I've spoken all around the world. I create videos talking about this stuff all the time. But the most important thing is my job is to simplify this whole business development world. I've recently just bought a Facebook ads course, right? It's got over 60 hours of content in it. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, why do people complicate everything so much? I don't know if anyone else relates to this, but have you ever done any marketing or sales training and you feel like the trainer is complicating things for the sake of sounding smart? Just give me a yes in the chat if you've ever done that. That's what I'm sitting here thinking about watching this Facebook ads course. And I'm like, will someone please just break this down into layman's terms for me? Today, all I'm going to do is give you the layman's terms. I'm going to give you the facts and I'm going to share with you why it works so you can then start to apply it yourself. Now, I share lots of information online. I'm documenting my business journey online. I have over 40 conversations a week with our academy members and agency clients, and I'm sharing insights and advice every single day to what I'm talking to my clients about. Now, if you want to see that information or you want to follow that journey, all you need to do is pick up your camera on your phone, shine over that QR code, and come and follow me. You can follow, you can connect, whatever, I don't mind. But what you will get if you become a connection of mine is feedback from me. I don't hold back. I give very blunt advice. I'm very much straight to the point. I have a podcast called Straight to the Point. And if I see something that I think you can do better, and if you want this, I will give it to you. I will give you the advice on how to improve completely free of charge. All you've got to do is be connected to me. It's sporadic. It's when I have time to do it, but it's something that I love to do to be able to give back to people that follow me. Okay, so go and connect with me if you haven't already, and we'll crack on. So I think it's really, really, really important to focus in on the context behind this presentation today. LinkedIn is a platform that I never used to use. Is there anybody that's been using this platform for a number of years? Actually, let's ask a better question. Who's just started using LinkedIn properly in the last year? Give me a Y. And those of you that have been using it longer than a year, just give me an N. I'm just genuinely interested. So Y and N, let's see what we've got. So we've got lots of people that are actually brand new, probably because I asked that question first. And then we've got the experienced people, the veterans piling in as well. Now, LinkedIn is a platform that I never used to use. I said that before, right? I used to be very much a strong Instagram user. I have a following of around 38,000 people on that platform, and I used to love it. Now, a couple of years ago, they changed the whole algorithm on Instagram. They reduced organic reach, and it meant that I had to create short form video called Instagram Reels to be able to trend. Now, I've never hidden away from the fact that I cannot stand short form video. I'm 14 minutes in here and I've still not really gotten into the content. I am a long form content creator. And therefore, platforms like YouTube and LinkedIn suddenly provided me with an opportunity, unlike what Instagram was currently doing. And therefore, I made the switch. I saw these three key reasons that I'm about to share as opportunity to be able to grab and take advantage of. The first one, bearing in mind, it took me over 2.5 years to build an Instagram following of 38,000 people. I've been using LinkedIn properly for around about 2 and a bit years, so nothing ridiculous, but maybe just 2 years now. And I've built up a following of around 16,000, but targeted people. You can do this simply by pressing buttons. And this is the ridiculous thing about it. You will probably already know this if you're using LinkedIn. However, being known is one of the key components of social media success. One of the biggest ways that we generate leads in our company is via word of mouth and referrals. We generate word of mouth referrals from people that we've not even worked with before, but it's because of the work that they see that we do online that they think, actually, yeah, I've heard of those people that do LinkedIn and social selling. You should speak to Pipeline 44. I've seen their stuff online. It looks good. Now, when you do this stuff properly, that is a really, really powerful way of being able to generate leads for yourself. The problem is that the majority of people that I speak to, nobody knows what they do. It's not clearly communicated. And guess what? Their audience isn't big enough for it even to make a difference in the first place. So what I'm saying to people is that although you may think you're great at what you do, if you've not got enough leads right now, it's because not enough people know how great you are. And what we need to be doing is maxing out our network invitations as step number one. So if you're not doing this already, some accounts have varying limits in terms of how many connection requests you can send a week. Currently, mine's letting me send around about 150 of them. I've got a section on network building coming up in very, very shortly. However, if you're not maxing out your network requests right now, 100 a week as a minimum, you're not taking LinkedIn seriously enough, because all it is pressing buttons. It is not difficult. However, no other platform gives you the opportunity to do it. If you go and follow someone on Instagram, they don't have to follow you back. If you go and like someone's Facebook page, it doesn't mean they're going to like it back. If you have a YouTube channel, you could subscribe to someone's channel, but they're not going to subscribe to you back. On LinkedIn, however, if you send a connection request to someone and they accept it, you both go into each other's ecosystems, and that's where the relationship starts to begin. So step number one is build your network, press the buttons every single week. I know it's tedious, I know it's boring, but it's crucially important if you want to take advantage. Number two is this whole term called organic reach. Now, there is no denying this. Organic reach is reducing month on month across every platform. The reason is because there's more advertising going on each platform. You will see even on LinkedIn, there are more ads on it than ever before. These algorithms are always shifting. However, there is still more potential organic reach on LinkedIn from a business to business point of view than I've ever seen. I still use all the other platforms, but from a B2B point of view, for you consultants out there, for your coaching businesses, whether you're in training or you're in any other form of consultancy area, to be able to find targeted warm clients, this is the best opportunity to do it, because the platform is still pushing content and good content far and wide. Nick, you may see it. I'm pinned as the speaker on this, right? But Nick has joined me as my business partner, put a post out today, has now reached over 12,000 people in less than 4 hours, posting something that, yeah, it isn't particularly business focused. However, the impressions drive more profile views, which then drive more followers, which then drive more opportunity into our business. It's like a domino effect. And the reality is people are spending more time on this platform than ever before. So if you become somebody worth following, that post now Nick's actually just shared with me is at 19,500 impressions in just under 5 hours. It is ridiculous what you can get when you understand how to play the game properly. I'm going to be sharing how to do that very shortly. But this whole term inbound will only happen if you can learn to master how to get your content to travel. Now, I'm just curious here. If you could just give me the time to be able to answer this question for me. Has anyone noticed a drop in their engagement on LinkedIn recently? Has anyone seen a drop in overall impressions? I'm really curious, because this is definitely what we've seen across a lot of our clients. Now, there has been a shift in this algorithm. I don't know statistically or factually what it is, but we work on hypothesis and assumptions. What we're noticing is there's been a huge increase in users on the platform. Now, those platform users have come from more generic social media platforms like Twitter and Facebook. Now, their user behavior is not actually as professional as what LinkedIn used to be. And therefore, if you're posting educational information type content, you would have seen a big drop in your overall reach. There are certain types of content that you need to start creating if you want to keep your impressions up. Now, there are some social media people out there that say impressions don't matter. Now, the only people I've ever met that say impressions don't matter are people that don't know how to get them in the first place. They use it as an excuse. And I told you I'm blunt. I'm just being honest, right? Because I've been there. I've been in a place where you can't get the reach that you're looking for, and therefore you think that it's not important. Here's a fact. The more impressions that I get, the more business that comes my way, because everything else spikes. And no matter how many other people try to convince me otherwise, I just look at the data. I'm a marketer by numbers. I always have been. So organic reach is where you can take advantage. And then the third and final reason is a huge one, is the tools that it provides you are like any other platform, like when it comes to business development, whether it's Sales Navigator, something that I am not a master on. My business partner, Sam, is the master of Sales Nav. I don't need it for a campaign type that I run. A big key term there. We run campaigns on our social media account, is how we get the predictable and the sustainable process. However, like when you start to understand how these tools work, that's where the opportunity comes. But the tool I'm going to talk to you about in this is called LinkedIn Events. Now, LinkedIn Events is something that we've used time and time and time again. For the last 2 years, we've been religiously using them, making sure that we're maxing out our invitations. That activity has generated us over 11,000 leads for free, right? For free, zero ad spend, nothing. Just from administration, from me pushing buttons. You can send 1,000 invites a week. If you're a consultant right now and you're brave enough to try an event, LinkedIn events, like a webinar like this, a workshop like this, LinkedIn events are categorically insane opportunities to take advantage of. I said to you before, I'm doing a Facebook advertising course at the moment. I'm always looking to learn, always looking to develop. Now, we've been running ads, and I'm going to share the graphic with you in a second. But to be able to get 11,000 leads, it's going to cost us over £100,000. I'm going to show you why in a second. But with LinkedIn events, it didn't cost us anything. A little bit of our time. So it takes about 15 minutes a week to be able to max out your invitations for it. But it's targeted because you build your audience with the right people. The faster your audience grows, the more of the right people you get. We ran this one. We've yet to beat this record. I'm still trying to beat it. But in December 8th, 2021, me and Sam ran an event together, which got 1,021 attendees, right? It is insane. Now, don't get me wrong. Not all of those people show up. Not all of those people register. But from that one event, we got over 250 email addresses to our list for free. And email is something that I'm going to focus in on halfway through this session today. I'm going to dive deep into it so you can see the power. But this one just in July, we got 843. Again, this is consistently happening all the time. Julie, would you mind asking that question in the Q&A section, just because it's an important one, and I'll come back to it for you. But just to show you the data of this, right? 11,000 leads is what we were looking for from the LinkedIn events work that we've got. These are our Facebook stats at the moment. Now, we're talking small ad spend here across around 5 or 6 different ad sets. But can you see, just let me know if you can see this in the chat box. Just put a yes if you can see it. Can you see the £9.16 per on Facebook leads? Can you see that number there, just to make sure it's clear for you? That's how much it's costing us per registration on Zoom. Like, it is expensive now. Don't get me wrong, I'm doing this training to get better at it. But the reality is our LinkedIn events are giving us a cost per lead of 0. Like, if this isn't a wake-up call for people to do it, I don't know what is. Now, I'm not saying you have to do one or the other. I'm saying that, like, do what we're doing. We get our content converting. We get our webinars converting organically. And then we look at the paid advertiser by reinvesting some of our profits. That's how this process works. That's how it's sustainable. That's how you continue to grow. And that is where I really want to focus in on as we enter part 1. It's about getting everything converting with an organic audience. It's about building credibility. It's about positioning yourself, because I don't know if this is a bit harsh to say, but like, when I look at most people's profiles online, and even I can get better at this, like, without a doubt, but I speak to people on Zoom and I see passion, I see enthusiasm. Let me know if I'm being fair by saying this, by the way. Let me know if you agree. Just put a Y again in the chat if you agree with me. But when I speak to people, they're passionate, energetic. You can see they're good at what they do. But then online, unfortunately, they're not able to show off the best version of themselves. They almost show the most boring version because they're like unsure, like, of what to say and like how to say it. And like, what I'm trying to do with my message, I share so much content on this stuff. It's like, look, you only have to make a few subtle changes to be able to start gaining people's attention, but you've got to make them. Otherwise, you're just going to be drowned out by all of your competitors just doing it slightly better than you. And that's where this first slide really comes in, because unfortunately, even if you're using LinkedIn right now or any social media platform, lots of people, if they haven't got these 3 things in place, are setting themselves up to fail. Now, the 3 things I'm going to go into detail on. The first thing is your product. So the thing that you're selling, we're going to go into why people are failing when it comes to this. The second thing is your target market. So understanding them, the psychology, what are they thinking? What are they really wanting right now? What don't they want as well at the same time? And then number 3 is the message, the language that you use. There's a difference, especially as a consultant, between preaching and sharing. It's a huge, huge thing. If you want to write that down and make sure I talk about it, if I forget, remind me. But the difference between preaching and sharing is so, so important when it comes to building trust online. But where I'm going to start is your product and offer. The foundations for every consulting business that everyone needs to get right, but unfortunately, lots of people get wrong. And the reason they get it wrong, and again, I don't need you to answer this in the chat box, I just want you to reflect on it for me. But like, most are selling their time for money right now. And what happens with that is that you end up in lots of price battles, and it's very difficult to scale. Unfortunately, people don't want that sort of package anymore. Like, they're really struggling to comprehend, how do I actually work out how much your time is worth versus what I get as a return on my money? Because you're looking at it from a consultant's point of view, where you get my time. But from a buyer's point of view, it's like, oh yeah, but how does that stack in terms of the results that you can give me? You focus in on the time where they're wanting the results, and you constantly butt heads because you're not speaking the right language. What we've got to do is frame your offer in a way so you're both speaking the right language and you both get what you want. And the best way to do this is something that's really, really simple, but just take a step back and spend 15 minutes, no longer than that, 15 minutes, trying to identify what people are buying in your space. So go and look at what your competitors are selling and how they're selling it. Find the number one, right? Find the number one person in your space that's doing what you're doing, and just research what it is that they're doing and how they're packaging it. Like, what we need all of our prospects to feel like by the time that they've gone through our conversion piece of content, by the time that they're on a call with us, is to go, I really need that. And when you do, you don't need to persuade, you don't need to convince, you literally just go, well, if you need it, there it is. I've got a deadline for you to be able to make the decision at this point. If you don't make it by this point, unfortunately, the offer is not valid. However, if you do, we then begin next week. So you're driving them through the process by having an offer in place, which actually is framed in a way that is desirable and also has some scarcity and urgency behind it. So people aren't just sitting there going and thinking about it and procrastinating. Now, I do want you to engage with this. How many of you have ever had someone, you send a proposal to them, you send a quote to them, and then they ghost you? Like, they completely ignore you. They don't even even say that they've received it. They just go quiet. That is because there's a load of yeses piling through, which is good to see. Like, in regards to this is so, so common. It is because, one, you haven't created enough desire, and two, there isn't any urgency and scarcity for them to really think about it now. They can push it to the side and then forget about it. And this is what we need to try and correct. And so what I want you to think about is your offer specifically right now. How do you create desire? How do you get people to sit back and go, oh, I really need that because that solves my problem? How do you package it? How do you sell it? And the best way of explaining this in terms of packaging, just to talk you through my example. So back in February 2020, I used to sell an Instagram 2-day masterclass. Right, so come and learn how to use Instagram was the sales message. It was 2 days. Now, I used to slog trying to sell this thing. You can see there's a room full of 7 people. I used to work so many hours trying to fill this program. I used to run webinars. I used to do everything. I used to sell the product for £500, and it wasn't expensive. It just about broke even when you looked at the venue costs and the food and hosting people. But I was like, there's got to be a better way of doing this. And I couldn't think of what it was. And then there was this thing that hit the world a few years ago that meant that I couldn't run in-person events anymore. You may know what it is. I'm not going to say what it is on here just because this will eventually go online, and I don't want it to be limited when it comes to views. However, there was a thing that happened that prevented in-person events being able to be run. So I switched it to online, and I thought, right, no one wants to spend 2 days learning about Instagram. So what do they want to be spending their time doing? And I switched it and changed it to a challenge-based program. So this was in March. And I switched it from an Instagram 2-day course to a how to gain 1,000 followers in 30-day challenge. Now, can you automatically see how the difference between a 2-day masterclass and how to gain 1,000 followers in 30 days? Who would be more inclined? Give me a thumbs up emoji in the chat. Who would be more inclined to come to the how to gain 1,000 followers in 30 days over an Instagram 2-day masterclass? Just let me know. There's loads of hands being raised. That's good stuff. Awesome stuff to see. Like the majority of you, right? The majority of you on here, there's nearly 100 of you on here. Like we've had probably 40 responses in that time frame, like all putting your hands up. You can see. So did the sales numbers. That was in April when I sold it. Now, I put in around about 3.5 grand per masterclass when I used to sell the 2 days. Switching this to a challenge in an online-based format where I was delivering like once every couple of days. I then sold some one-to-one stuff at the end of it as well. The shift, that was my best ever month, 25 grand in a month. I'm sitting there, I'm like, this is ridiculous. Just from changing the way that I package my product. It was the same information, just broken down. But time and time again, I sit with consultants and I look at this sort of switch because I know how powerful it was for me. And I also know how powerful it's been for other people. And one person is a lady called Sasha Saville. Now, Sasha was my PA when I first started working with her about 1.5 to 2 years ago. And so I knew how good she was. But she was on an hourly rate model, like I mentioned on the previous slide. Now, the problem was with, especially in the personal assistant, virtual assistant world, is that there's always someone that can do it cheaper. And you don't know quality until you found quality. And that actually goes for a lot of businesses. I know there's an accountant on here. If you're still here, just show me, give me a wave or something. I know there's an accountant on here, and that's the same thing. You never know a good accountant until you've got a good accountant. And problem is you tend to just be referred business left, right, and center. So when you go out to proactively find one, there's a few accountants on here, amazing. When you go out to find one, you end up having conversations like, well, they're going to charge me 600 quid to do my accounts. You're charging me 1,000. How's like, where's the 400 quid coming from? You end up having conversations that you know you don't really want to have, but you feel justified to have them because the leads come to you. And the problem is with it is that you're in this battle all the time. So what I'm trying to get people to do is think about things slightly differently. This is what we had Sasha do. So we switched her business to a retainer-based model. I know lots of accountants are doing this as well, because that's how we use ours, by having a retainer on point. And then we focused in on getting her in the right rooms. And by doing that, switching up her offer, she saw similar results to us. So again, we didn't do anything apart from get her in the right places and switch up her offer. But you can read that testimonial. It's not a testimony, it's a WhatsApp message she sent me. But 45 grand of contracted business came through because suddenly she stood out. She was doing things differently. And people are interested in different. People love new. So I'm always looking to release new, even if it's the same stuff, packaged differently, it's new. And when you do that, again, you generate intrigue and interest. Does that all make sense, by the way? Just let me know in the chat that's making sense. As we move into audience, what's really important to realize is that when you've got your product and offer in place, it's then about matching it up to who you're trying to target. I know that this is a fact. I've said it a couple of times already. Everyone wants a bigger audience. Even I want a bigger audience still. But a lot of you aren't doing the basic stuff right. And people overcomplicate this for me, like really, really overcomplicating it. So 3 ways to build your audience, if you want to write this down. Maximize your connection requests is number 1. Number 2 is collaborations. So especially as consultants or service-based offer, you've got knowledge. You've got information that other people will be interested in hearing. So the question is, who do you know that's got an audience, a relevant audience that you can create some content with? So rather than just creating it on your own, how can you leverage other people's audiences? We have in our academy I think it's over 30 people now that are running their own podcasts. People interview each other. They collaborate with each other. So they expose each other to different audiences because they've all got different services. We talk a lot about affiliate marketing in our academy as well. So they all generate money off each other in it. Collaborations are a great way, an easy way to scale when you do it properly. And then number 3 is creating content just on your own, but in different places. So although I'm focusing on LinkedIn today, if you just focus in on LinkedIn, you're missing out on opportunity. So we teach it all. Teach LinkedIn, YouTube, talk about Instagram, Facebook. The only one we don't talk about is TikTok because I don't use it. I'm not a user, so I struggle to give advice around it, but everything else we do. And when you get these things right and start focusing in on the numbers, it becomes seriously addictive. And I just want to talk you through one example here. I mentioned Nick before. I'm going to mention him again now. Nick, when he first started to take his audience building seriously, was posting content like this because this is what he saw online. Now, if you're posting graphics right now, this is a bit of a harsh lesson. They don't work. No one's interested. They definitely don't do anything for your network building. They also do nothing for your credibility. But also, if you look at the engagement, they're an actual waste of time. And if you look at this content here, Nick had around about 5,500 connections at the time of posting this. 20 reactions, 4 comments. So we sat down and we went, right, something we do with every Academy member. We sat down and went, right, what do you want your brand to be? Who do you want to be online? This isn't a one conversation you forget about it. It's an ever-going conversation that you always need to develop. And we went, okay, so if that's who you want to be, let's start putting out the right content that's going to travel and showcase who you really are. So we did. Rather than sharing boring graphics, we switched it up and we start talking about business, entrepreneurship. Nick's a family man as well. But just go back there. Can you see the reaction shift? 20 reactions, 144 reactions. Now, they're not everything, right? But I definitely would prefer a post that's got 300 reactions on it than 10. Wouldn't you? Like, I know this is sometimes common sense to think about it. For people to say it doesn't matter, of course it matters. Like, this stuff is a waste of time unless it gets seen. So at least if you're going to spend the time doing it, do it right. And you can see here again, 211. People used to call me a robbing, like powerful headlines to grab attention, 86 comments. Before we had 4, 347 reactions, 196 comments, all on the same account. Today he's got a post that's got over 200 reactions again, 15,000 people. Everyone can get these results. Everybody does. We've got hundreds of people that are doing this right now. It is not hard. But you've got to start tracking your numbers to be able to identify what works and what doesn't. If you are posting blindly right now and not looking back at your content and seeing what's done well and where you can improve, this is your virtual kick up the backside to start doing it. 4,800 or 4,800, you see connection total, 4,755 back last year in May that was taken. And this is actually an old screenshot. Nick's now got another 2,000 followers in about a month and a half. He's overtaken me. He's got 16,000 followers because he's just repeating this 2 to 3 times a week. But here's a new one for you. Social media people that tell you to post every single day. If you don't want to, you don't have to. You can still get growth. I post maybe 2 to 3 times, maybe 4 times a week. I've got a business to run. Like I have a social media agency and I still don't spend that much time on it because you don't need to. Like you've got more important things to do. Get on, get the work done, get off it and crack on and do something else. This is what happened. This was back in April of this year that you can see, right? So Jack had like literally no following whatsoever. Just by pressing the buttons, 95 to 211, and the day isn't up yet. It's one day. 1,400 connections by Nancy up to 2030. SSI score is up just by focusing in on it. You've just got to pay attention to it. And when you do that, it will grow. So what I'd love for you to do for me right now is just post, whether you write it down, put it in the chat box, I don't care where, post your current total follower number or write it down so you've got track of it. From there, just start looking at it every single day. And from there, I guarantee you'll be forcing yourself just to keep looking at it growing. And the more that you focus in on it, the quicker it will grow. That goes as fact across everything that we look at, from number of followers to email addresses. Like people are going from no followers on account to 1,000 in a couple of weeks. It's not that hard to do. You've just got to commit to doing it and posting the right things. When you then do that, you can then move on to a message. So when I look at most people, they're following advice from people who fail to provide any context whatsoever. You might have been told to do this before, and I want to virtually shake you and tell you to stop today. People say in content, you need to add loads of value. You end up posting loads of information and then you get 0 engagement from it. It's something that lots of people do. It's not your fault. It's just what you've been told. I'm here to tell you that if you post nitty-gritty technical information on this platform, it will die a slow death. You need to understand what works. Also, I said to you I was going to talk about preaching versus sharing. Most people try and talk about pain. Marketers give the advice. You need to talk about pain. The problem is if you start telling people about all the problems that they've got, they put a wall up if it's not framed properly and push you away. I spent an hour talking to a lady called Monica yesterday all about this stuff. Like she wants to shout from the rooftops, like her passion and her message, but she's afraid that she's going to be like called out for some stuff. We've just gone to her, look, stop talking about the pain, start sharing your message and what you believe in and why you believe in it. And it doesn't matter how loud you shout. All the negative feedback doesn't matter because you're talking about what your beliefs are. And when you do that, you will attract your tribe. And then when you do it, what happens is rather than blending in, you end up standing out. And again, when you do this, we were talking to a gentleman called Nick Holt. I don't know if Nick's here actually today. Nick sometimes attends. But Nick hadn't had a client, you can see on here, since February. Now, when we're speaking to Nick, and we're like, well, why? What are you doing? Now, Nick does, I'm sure he won't mind me saying this, something that's very technical. It's called SQL. He trains people on SQL to help them get new jobs, the most blandest subject in the world. However, rather than talking all about the technical information, we switched it up and went, Nick, who are you as a person? Who do you want to help and what are they going to respond to? We did a whole evaluation exercise on it and we gave him everything that he needed to say in the webinar, in his advertising, in his content. And from that, because he from joining, he got his first client through. He's now got on to get his second and he's growing and growing and growing. If you're struggling right now for this stuff, it's just about getting advice from the right people that are going to tell you the truth. And sometimes the truth is you need to stop being boring. And then answer that question. Very smooth transition, not. But it's answering that really, really important question of why should someone follow you in the first place? Do you know why? Do you have a compelling reason? When I first started doing this, I had to take the time to study my subject area in real detail. I need to think about my audience and actually less about what my audience needed, because need doesn't travel. I had to think about what they wanted. What did they want to cheer on? What did they want to disagree with me on? What did they want to really buy from us? Questions that you need to know the answers to if you want to frame what you do in the right way. And then have a look at what everyone else is doing in the marketplace and find your gap. So something that we did with Eric. Now, when we first started working with Eric, you can see he's got 54,000 followers there. Eric's now got under 500,000 followers. It's ridiculous. Like 450,000 followers in under a year. Now that came from Eric looking at the opportunity, doing a couple of collaborations with some big YouTubers to get some exposure. Again, all part of a plan. And then from that, putting out content that was different. Now, Eric would fall into the category of putting out information and educational type content, but he does it in the right content type. And he does it like I've seen nobody else do it before. Something that I've read from Eric is I've never read it before, and therefore it stands out and it's valuable. The problem is with most information and educational content, it's regurgitated from somewhere else. And therefore you've already seen it, and therefore you're not going to engage with it. And this is something that I speak to everyone about, but I spoke about it to Jamie York in a lot of detail. Jamie doesn't have a huge LinkedIn following, but when we first started working together a couple of years ago, there were hundreds of property educators out there. And we had to really take the time, something that all of you need to do, by the way, take the time to work out what their advantage was, right? Take the time to think about what it is. Now, unfair advantages will enable you to stand out. Jamie's was the fact that he had a property business that was doing millions of pounds before he even started educating. So he was doing what he was teaching, which is actually unlike lots of property people that are out there. And so take the time to think about what stood out for you. For me, when I started my Instagram business, is the fact that I had a 38,000 organic following that I'd built by accident. I didn't know how I did it. I had to work that out. My unfair advantage was the fact that I'd done it, whereas lots of people have to go out and buy a following. I didn't. I accidentally grew it. And therefore what happens is I've got credibility in a space that lots of other people don't. And then you need to get the best version of you out there. So that's what we did with Jamie. We put a plan together, launched a YouTube channel, got him active on LinkedIn, wrote his webinar for him, got his online course going, and he went from nothing to 88,000 subscribers in just over a year and a half. Here's a thing, right? For the first 2 months, Jamie didn't even get to 1,000 subscribers. From 2 months of posting every single week, he posted twice a week, but doing that twice a week strategy for a year, for the first 2 months, 1,000 subscribers. From month 2 to month 12, 80,000 subscribers. Again, you need to do this for just that short bit longer to be able to see the results from it. And when you do, and you then have the right conversion content like Jamie did, Jamie's got on to do way more than £1 million. He's done incredibly well. He's very gifted at what he does. He's in the multi-millions now, but again, he's done an incredible job. And at the end of this session, I'm going to be offering you the chance to speak with me. And on that session, we're going to talk through a message that's going to grab attention, talk through that and what you're doing. We're going to review your current product and offer relevancy, look at your current positioning, and basically wrap around the plan. And that plan may involve working with us in the future. It may not, depending on where you're at. Now, if you'd want one of these calls, there's a limited number of them. There's 15 of them available. You'll see in the Calendly spots to be able to book it. All you need to do is scan that QR code and simply fill out the application form that's on there. I put a form in there because otherwise you don't turn up seriously enough for them. Make sure you fill out the form with enough detail for me to be able to help you. pipeline44.com/apply. And that QR code there. I will put the link in at the end as well. And there's something bonus for you for those of you that stay till the end of today to be able to get on that call. But it's only if you stay till the end. There's a bonus thing that I'm going to give you for booking one in. So that's the QR code there. Once you've filled out that form for me, once you've done it, you can do it throughout this presentation. Once you've done it, just put like call in the chat box so I know, so I can double check to make sure it's come through. Okay, so that's that there for you, all sorted. So some top tips for clarity to finish part one off. Number one, do the research, and the rest I'm going to bring up to the screen so you can take a photo of them. But the biggest one that I want to talk about here is you've got to be open to change and expect blunt feedback. Like if you want to get this working for you, be open enough to be able to accept that you might need to do things slightly differently. And then if you're held accountable to do them differently, that's where everything's going to fall into place for you. Okay, so that's clarity. Now that's part one. We're going to move into part two. So this is all about your LinkedIn activity now. Once you've got the basics in place, you can move forward. Now, when it comes to this stuff, there's two things that you need to do when it comes to connecting with people online. Number one is build an audience. Number two is control. I'm going to start with build. Now, with building your audience, I've said there are three things that you can do: create, collaborate, and connect. Connecting is all around network building. So network building, I've spoken about in detail, so I'm going to breeze through it for you. You've got to max out your limits. 100 a week minimum. You need to be getting the warning from LinkedIn saying you've spent too much time connecting. You need that warning. If you're not getting that right now, you're not doing it enough. But again, just go out there and mass connect with your target market. I teach specific things on this in the academy. However, just so you're in this, just max out. Go and think about your job titles that you're trying to connect with. Locations. Alicia, in terms of the business page, it plays a part on the business page, but it's very much LinkedIn, a personal profile platform. I'll answer that now for you so you've got it. But again, when you do, I mentioned Jack, and all I ask the Academy members to do is just every day send a message. Jack 265, 272 followers, 298 followers, 304 followers. That's 100 in literally a period of 4 days, just by being accountable and going through it. So push the buttons. Then you can talk about content. So content is something that lots of people struggle with. And there are certain things that I love to do from a content themes point of view to be able to stand out. I look to share my experiences every single day. So every call that I do, little tip for you, every call that I do, I take notes on it. And the best bits of information that I give, I highlight them. That then forms a basis for content in the future. So I collect a whole journal of all my best bits of information. I take photos as I go. So I'm going to take a photo now. So I've got one for later on. That's me then sharing, and I've got that image that I can share to summarize this webinar afterwards. But when you're doing this, I look to share from experience, I look to post some controversial type content, and I look to share my journey. Like that's what I'm looking for here. I'm going to show you examples because it's easier to do that. But to be able to really get good at content, you've got to want to become good at it. And this is something that is a challenge for some people because lots don't want to create. I don't really want to create. But I have to try and convince myself that it's a good idea to, because there are things that you need to keep looking at to be able to get better. And that question there, I've already got you to answer, right? But how can you get exposure to other people's audiences? So on a left-hand side of a bit of paper, just write down collaborations. Just write down the word collaborations. And then after today, just go and think about 20 different podcasts that you could be interviewed on that would give you exposure, that would give you results. And when you're looking at your content, then have a look at actually if it's something that people are going to find easy to engage with. Something that's really easy is to look at it, read it and go, what would I comment on that? And if you can't think of something to comment, you need to change it up so it's easy for people to go, this is absolutely incredible. I didn't think about this. Have you ever thought about doing it this way and creating conversation? Most people don't really talk about this stuff, but actually the best pieces of content out there are the ones which really get you like to a point where you have to comment. Has anyone ever felt like this before? Like you're reading a piece and you feel like you've just got to say something. Like you've got to, like you're almost triggered sometimes, or sometimes you have that much emotional output that you've got to say it. I get it consistently whenever I see content. That's what I look to do with mine. I really think about what's going to drive people to comment on my stuff, and that's where it all comes apart. And you can see when you start to do this stuff, the results come through. So you can see this is a lady called Nadine, and that a business opportunity came to her because of the increased visibility. Really simple. This is all I did. Like I take photos everywhere that I go. I go out there and I do stuff. That's all I literally do stuff and capture it and then talk about my experiences doing it. Most people, especially consultants, don't realize what they're doing every single day. You spend hours talking to people. You're out there at networking events. You may be doing some speaking, and if not, you want to start. And these moments are all things that you can share. And this is where we need to make the difference. So you can see in my content here, this is for you to look at after today as well. But £600 per month from property you don't even own. This was back when I had my Airbnb business. On the left-hand side there, halfway down, £4,100 of profit. What I'm looking to do was showcase to people that we were making money. That's what people want in property. We were looking to raise finance for this business. And the only way that we were going to raise finance is to show people that it was a good investment. And whatever it is that you're doing, if you're in a consulting space, you need to have the same mindset. How can you share what it is that you do so other people know that you're a good thing to choose? Really, really important. And this is something that Philippa did amazingly well. You can see their impressions on one post, under 500,000, 500,000 impressions. Slightly educational, but it was very controversial. It's still climbing. Followers increased from 7,096 to 7,600 in 5 days. 50 messages thanking me for being a voice, and 5 bespoke package proposals. People think that this type of content isn't right for LinkedIn and that it's not going to generate them business. I promise you follow this type of content strategy, follow the plan that we lay out, and business comes from it. Proposals that would never have landed on her desk without that increased visibility. So your content is important. You don't need to post every single day, but what you do post needs to be with intent. And then to wrap all of that up, you can then go into engagement. So with engagement, I mean commenting on posts. And reality is that everybody, when they put a post out there, wants someone to engage in it, wants someone to comment on it. And I know it can be tedious. However, if you want to get someone's attention, you're better off leaving a comment on their post than sending them a direct message, because it's less competitive. There is less traffic. And this is where we can take advantage. When you get the combination of all of this right, I know I'm speaking quickly, but it's because I want to get through it all for you. But when you get the combination of this right, it's where it all clicks into gear. Matt Fletcher has nearly, I think he's over 30,000 followers now, but he's in engineering and you can see they're manufacturing equipment, something that you would never imagine being popular on LinkedIn. But his content, you can see he's just sharing what he's doing. He's following the right content approach. 128,000 views, 8,000 profile views. And then when it happens, when you get that level of exposure, you can see the comment at the top. I'm taking on 18 new customers this month. All have come through LinkedIn. Increased profile views being the reason. This was a few months later. Wanted to share some news, give you a bit of an update. I've had 1 million plus deal done recently. 3-year contract worth 1.2 million quid from sharing on LinkedIn with the right plan. And this is where I get so frustrated with people, because I know people are putting in the same time as Matt, but they're just doing it wrong. And I'm sitting here, I'm like, how can I shout this louder? Because people really need to hear it. Because when you start to build it properly, the thing that you then need to do is then control it. There is no point relying on an algorithm to generate your business. You need to lift it off the platform. And this is that control space. And the way that we take control is via prospecting, but driving people to an email list. And I know you've probably heard about an email list before, but if you don't have one, this is the kick to really start to build it. We need to get people off of this platform as quickly as possible. I mentioned to you at the beginning, touch points and dwell time. That is all that matters when it comes to marketing and sales. With us, we provide 4 big pieces of value before anyone could buy anything. I have all my free content online. I have a number of lead magnets out there. The 100 content ideas is one of them that we give away for free. And again, that gives us email addresses. We then have this webinar. We then have the strategy call. You have those 4 things, 4 specific touch points, a number more if you actually watch lots of content from me. And with that, you start to understand that we know what we're talking about. Now you need to flip it. Do you do the same thing and show other people that you know what you're talking about, or are you leaving opportunity on the table? This is the sort of message that I send. I push people to a YouTube video. I push people to a lead magnet. I say to people, I don't want to have a conversation with you. I'm not interested. I'm only interested if you've got an interest in what I want to talk about. And if you are, you'll come to me. That is it. You then let the process do all of the work for you. And when you do that, that's where things click into gear. It's exactly what we spoke to Alison about. And I don't know if Alison's on here, but lots of you tend to come and watch. But Alison, this is like some of the support that people don't appreciate in terms of what we do for people. But people run webinars in our academy a lot. It's one of the things that we teach people to do. And we watch absolutely everything that someone does. But as we went through this, right, we looked at the structure of Alison's webinar. We went through it. And then we booked in a call to talk through some changes that she needed. Thanks for your help and support on Friday. What she didn't have was the right framing of message. She didn't have the right structure to help people have a mindset shift on her webinar. So she built up the traffic, but people weren't buying. And so we had to reframe it. And with that, we completely rewrote her webinar. And this was the feedback that I gave. I watched the replay and gave her this feedback. You can print screen that, read the feedback, and you can apply it to yourself as well. But it's bespoke to her business. Okay. So it's all booked in and it's there for her. It's all there for her to be able to change. Really appreciate the feedback. Look forward to trying it. And then you can see here, just from those changes from June the 1st, this was on May 23rd, a week later on, 2 new clients at the back of my webinar this week. It's this month. So these are my first clients I've had that have not been known or referred to me through my real life network. When you start taking control and proactively going after your business, going after your prospects and having this process in place, this is where suddenly you're not reliant on word of mouth referrals anymore. So these are the top tips for connection for you. They are there. The biggest one is the one at the bottom. People are not on LinkedIn to buy stuff. This is not Amazon, right? This is not that form of website. This is not that form of platform. People are on LinkedIn for 2 reasons: for their own network building, relationship building type work, or because they're bored. Normally the latter. You've probably been on it once or twice already in this webinar because you've got bored of my voice. You do it because it's a habit. And so what we need to do is one of 3 things with anything that we're doing online. We need to educate, we need to inspire, or we need to, as I'm trying to think of the third one, entertain. Educate, inspire, entertain. The best content does all 3 of them. And we talk about a lot when we work, and we'll talk about that on the call as well. So that's part 2, connection, the activity you need to do. Let's talk about conversion. So to take someone from prospect to customer, I say this all the time. I don't care if you like me or not. I'm only going to tell you the truth. And if you don't like it, that's fine. But what I want you to realize is that everything that I'm sharing for you today is what I do day to day. It's what I'm doing in this business. It's why you're here today, because of this process. People, in my opinion, on social are wasting so much time. They create content and no one engages with it. They're running lives and no one's there. They're sending messages and getting no responses. They receive, let me know if you've ever received this comment, by the way. You're so good at what you do. I absolutely love that. It's been brilliant. But then they never buy from you. Give me a yes in the chat if you've ever had that before. You get compliments all the time, but the pipeline is dry. That is because you're not creating enough desire and you're not initiating a mindset shift where people realize that they need to work with you. I have zero doubt that you're not working hard, but you've got to put your effort in the right places and not just send messages that fill up people's inboxes. If you can make this change and start standing out in an inbox or standing out on the newsfeed, getting people to events like this where you don't have to fight with anyone else, you're just sharing your thing, it's so much easier to do. And for me, the one thing that everyone's missing, the big bit of today, is that process. Like, this is an events process. There are a number of other ones that you can run, but when I look at most, they don't have a process like this, and they definitely don't look at the data within it to be able to make accurate changes. When I really look at this, I look at it and go, right, how is the best way to explain it? I'm just going to show you. So Donna is an in-house lawyer consultant. She's the lawyer coach that you can see there. She's worked with us for coming up to a year now. And with it, she had elements of this process in place. And I want you to think about what you've got in place right now as well. Donna had worked with other marketing people before, but the advice wasn't working. And straight away with hers, we knew we need to make it a change. These were the gaps that we saw, right? They're all there for you. Focusing on selling in DMs, trying to sell via direct message, trying to convert people in the messages, doesn't work. She was putting out content that no one was engaging with, again, doesn't work. She had no clear way of identifying what was working and what wasn't. Again, you're guessing. Don't guess your way to success. It's the shortcut to failure. So what we did was just put her a 6-week plan in place. That's what we do with everyone, 6-week plan. You just follow it step by step. And every step along the way, you get it reviewed by us. So we'll tell you if you're right or wrong. With Donna, she had these things in place. You can see there's a lot of work to do. Within 3 weeks, you've got all of this set up, and then 3 weeks of promotion and you're good to go. Simple as that. 6 weeks and you're making money. So simple. You've just got to follow it. So with Donna, throughout that initial 3-week period, we built that. We reviewed everything for her. So we told her if it was right or if it was wrong and what we needed to correct to be able to get it to the stats that we set as targets. And then we moved through it. As you can see on the right, that was a sort of feedback that she got. And we went out, and this is the thing that you all need to do. We need to build out your process. Craft a message that helps you stand out. Work out what you need to say in your webinar. Or if you're going to run a different approach, like a one-to-one consulting approach, then you need a different conversion piece of content. We then got our email marketing working. She used our email templates. We helped her adapt them slightly. And again, got them scheduled in so they worked like clockwork. We got her a lead magnet that was actually going to be downloaded. We have a lead magnet called 100 content ideas. If you want it, put the number 100 in the chat and we'll get a copy over to you. But if you've not got people queuing up for your lead magnet, it's the wrong lead magnet. In a matter of 3 seconds, I've already got 15 people putting in 100, right? That is the desire that you need to create from a lead magnet. If it is not that, it is a waste of time. Stop putting it out there and create a new one. And to Donna, we said, remove everything. Stop doing everything else. Just focusing on getting this process in place. And with that, following that 6-week plan, she got through the process. It was something that she could then repeat. Within 3 hours of a workshop, she did $6,000 in sales, which was okay. It's not mind-blowing, but again, it's a good result for her. It did really well. She's now doing $16,000 and $20,000 on webinars. But she then set the date for her next one. And the amazing thing was, if you don't hit the stats, the industry standard stats for an event campaign, which is what I'm running right now, if I don't get a 50% show up rate and a 10% conversion, I know, and there's different stats in between that, but I know there's things I need to change. And you can see here, just from the work, this was back in November, 80 people registered, 33 attended, 2 people booked the call. And again, November the 11th, those 2 people then bought. So they signed up. That was where our $6,000 came from. We then had a bit of a drinking party. It was like an online Zoom thing on a Friday celebrating. But again, then we ran it again in March. We knew what we had to change. And suddenly from 2, she got 5 taken straight away. And then she had a few booked after that because she's creating desire. It's not a one-off, right? This happens all the time with people that we're working with. 21 members in my mentoring team now have sold the 6K package to a 35K deal. It doesn't matter if you're selling a £500 product or a $50,000 product. They all work in the same way. It's just different lengths of webinar depending on the value. Again, here, 67 people joined, 4 people completed my mastermind application, and then had our first mastermind group signed up an hour later. Again, the same thing with Tony, the same thing with Lynn, the same thing with Antonia in the same way. This happens like all the time. Ran my first webinar, 7 breakthrough calls booked. Like, I'm showing you this because if this isn't happening for you right now, then you can make the change and it can happen in less than 4 weeks. You'll have all of it set up and done and ran. 2 clients signed up. Angela in the same way. I'm literally so pleased. 18 clicks on the replay, 1 call booked directly, another 3 coming through. Angie McQuillan was another one, a huge result. 13 people booked her call in. And if I can bring my mouse, you can see that there on the same way. Nick Holt, I mentioned earlier, 3 signups that Angie got from her thing the other day as well. Every Monday and Thursday as a group, we talk to people together, but we also have one-to-one calls with every single Academy member, literally looking at every little detail, helping them through. It is so easy for us to do because all we're doing is comparing it against our process as well. And so with conversion, it's all about having this process in place, right? That one there that I mentioned before is the most important point. Do not guess your way to success. When you get it right, your numbers dictate what changes you need to make. I've just got to get you through the first time. Like, I've got to get you through that first webinar. From there, we have all the data that we need to be able to rinse and repeat over and over and over again. I've run this webinar over 200 times now. It hasn't changed a huge amount. It's just been updated with new information as the platform changes. You need to do the same thing, because if you want to start generating a consistent flow of leads, you need to stop having this fixation on creating huge amount of content, because you don't need to. What you need is a process in place that you know is going to work, and it gets prospects to a point where they want to buy, and then you've got to deliver the service where you get great reviews. That's all you've got to do to grow. You then need the promotional plan so your audience grows. And when you do that, you've just got to keep doing it over and over again. I can't lie. This is extremely boring. I don't love doing this. I do it because this is how the business grows. And you need to have the same mindset. You've got to allocate time to be able to build this from a marketing and sales point of view, because I know how passionate you are. I have zero doubts. But if you want to grow right now, you need to stop doing all this pointless nonsense that's just costing you time because some randomer told you it was a good thing to do back in the past. We need to get you focusing on the right stuff, being extremely efficient and ticking the boxes. And when you do that, you see the results that we get. And that's where I want to introduce the Academy to you. It takes 5 minutes to go through. You can't buy this right now. It's something that we will talk about on those calls that you've booked, and I will answer all your questions at the end. It's application only. We need to make sure it's the right fit for both of us, because it isn't for everyone. Now, we used to do this in person. Like I said, we've taken it online, and it's a really straightforward program in how we run it. What we have done is built for you roadmaps to follow. Really simple, right? What we're going to do is take you through each step, and we're going to review everything as we go. So we're going to review your product and offer. We're going to speak and get it to a point where it's going to stand out and people want to buy it. We're then going to show you how you frame your message, so people start paying more attention to what you do. Something that sounds so simple, but sometimes it's quite hard for you to do when you're trapped inside of what you're doing day to day. We're then going to pick the right campaign. So if you're wanting to run webinars, and webinars are something that we teach like in detail, every step, every sentence you need to say. We even write these presentations for people throughout that process at times. And then we need to effectively generate the traffic, and then we need to nurture it. So each step, there are videos to watch, and there are calls that you need to have with me and the team to be able to drive you through it. That this stuff isn't difficult. Sometimes you just need that accountability to get it done. You'll all be sitting here knowing you need to do this. You know you need to. You've probably been putting it off for months. If you want to get this done quickly, we're going to get you through it. And that's all our job is to get you through this process. But we're going to take you through that step by step. We're going to build that process into your business and make sure that it's done within that 6-week period. As you can see there, it's about creating the webinar slides, practicing it, getting your email campaigns in place. We've done a lot of the hard work for you. You've just got to follow the steps. And then every step along the way, you send in your work and we will give you the feedback. We're not coaches. We're not going to ask inquisitive questions and get you to come up with the answers. We're going to tell you the answer so you get to the answer quickly. And then when you do that, that's why we have oodles of people that are saying how good it is, because there's no, excuse the language, there's no bullshit. It's just to the point, get the work done, follow what we say, ignore all the other advice that you're getting, follow what we're doing, and it will work for you. So with what I'm saying here, again, you can see like the results that come through. There's loads of testimonials of us online. Like if you want to read these, watch the replay, they're there. But inside this Academy package, this is how it works. You work with us for a year. So you work with us for a whole year, 12 months, and then it's a monthly subscription afterwards. You get personalized feedback every step of the way. And we look at your sales funnels, landing pages, emails. We even look at your sales calls if you record them. We look at your content. We look at your offer. You then get held accountable in our community, which is called Slack. You get deadlines set for your work. So you get assigned a specific person in our business, which is going to hold you accountable. At the front end of it, it's going to be me and a couple of others that are going to really drive you forward. So you're going to have realistic deadlines to meet. You will agree those deadlines. And then when you submit your work, you will have a call with either me or one of the team to review what you've done, to either say, great job, or actually you need to change it. You get access to our weekly mentoring calls. We do those on a Monday and a Thursday. They're an hour long. And we've done all the templates for you, so you don't even need to do that much work. You just need to follow it, okay? You also get access to our Sales Navigator training program. So we've got a number of hours of training that Sam has done on Sales Navigator. Lots of you are spending money on Sales Nav right now. Make sure you're using it properly, right? This is what that training gives you. Now, for all of that, like literally, there are people that charge thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds for this one-to-one support and also all of the training. We just want 150 quid a month for the year. That is it. Like, I've tried to make this as much of a no-brainer for people as humanly possible. And with this program, you get everything that you need. You do not need to buy anything else. I say this to every person when I speak to them. Like, do not underestimate the support. We've now nearly got 300 people in there. And the reason why we do it is because we're fed up of seeing people moaning that these platforms don't work. If you commit to us and follow what we do, you will get the results you're looking for. And again, this is the sort of feedback that I'm talking about. It is bespoke. I will watch your webinars. I will watch them end to end and give you all the bullet point by bullet point feedback. I watch hours of webinars every single week along with my team, right? I will study everything that you do and show you how you need to say things. I will even record videos back, sharing what you need to say instead of saying certain things. That is how we get the results, right? We just go over and over and over again. You can see the level of detail. And this was in days. Like, we just looked at Aga's flipping funnel structure. And then from there, 2 clients came on board, looking at your sales process. Our testimonials are literally everywhere. Like, I can sit here and read them for you, but you'd literally fall asleep. And that is there for you to go and look at online, wherever you want to go. But there's 2 ones I want to focus you in on. It's one sentence that both of them say. And it's simply put, just do what we say and your business will grow. So that's what Donna said. Same thing with Angie at the time here. If you ever work with Chris, it's very simple. Just listen to us. Trust the process. That's all you've got to do, and this will all click into place. And from that, again, Angie was a little bit uncertain at the beginning, but she's gone through it now. 17 calls booked off the back of a webinar, and our audience is growing faster than ever. So I'm going to put that code back up there for you. Some of you have already booked your call in, so we'll have that conversation anyway. But it's first come, first served. If the calls have gone already, all the times will be gone, so you won't have the chance to anyway. But message me if you can't make any of the calls. We'll see what we can do. But is that QR code there? Okay, so that QR code is there for you to scan, pipeline44.com/apply. And again, with this, there's just a few questions that you need to answer. The calls are either today, tomorrow, or Friday. I think it's Wednesday today, isn't it? Yeah, Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. And then we start then next week. So really simple. To recap it, all of that, it's 150 quid a month. And for the first 5 people that decide to join us, you're going to get a bespoke one-to-one clarity session that we charge at around about £1,500 plus VAT. You're going to get that included. So the first 5 of you that join us and decide that this is right for you, so again, get your calls booked in early if you can, then you're going to get that with me, that it's bespoke, and we'll even go into even more detail than we will on the initial call anyway. Okay, so pipeline44.com/apply. I'm going to take some time now to go through the Q&A section. I know there's 13 questions in there, so I'm going to take my time to go through those. If you have any other questions, please use the Q&A section again. For those of you that have booked your calls in already, I will speak to you on those calls, so we will go through it. And I hope that's been helpful. I hope that's given you the information that you need. If it has, just give me a thumbs up if it's been helpful and it's all made sense. I'll be really, really grateful. And whilst I do that, I will load up the Q&A section as we're going through. So, Julie, I'll answer yours first. So question, not probably using Sales Nav. Sales now have enough. Is it worth going back using LinkedIn, maxing out my connections each week and spending the money on LinkedIn events instead? So you don't spend money on LinkedIn events, Julie. They're free to use. So I would say if you're paying for Sales Nav right now, I'd stop and I would start looking at really maxing out the free version of LinkedIn and then switch into premium so you get the maximum search limits. Sales Nav is a specific tool that lots of people pay for, but they don't need. So one of the things when cost is an issue is like, look, stop wasting your money on that and start focusing on the free stuff first. It's a bit like the Facebook ads conversation. Don't pay for things until your stuff's already converting, and then you know that you'll get more benefit out of it. Right, so I've answered that one live, all good. Kelsey, LinkedIn is an informative educational platform as opposed to, say, Instagram. You mentioned that the algorithm for this type of content has changed and impressions are decreasing. What type of content would boost impressions? So the way to be able to do this, don't worry, Nick, I've got that as we go through. It's all good. But yeah, in terms of what type of content, like there's a mixture. People call it social proof. I call it sharing the difference that I make. So I share publicly like how good what we do is. So there's that type of content. There's also a question that you can answer